Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Vinco Ventures, Inc. Annual Meeting of Shareholders. At this time, I would like to turn things over to James Robertson, CEO of the corporation. Please go ahead, sir.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi, this is Chris Palmini. I'll be acting as the secretary of this meeting. And at this time, the meeting please come to order. Let me take this opportunity to welcome all of those present at this meeting, the annual shareholders meeting of Vinco Ventures, Inc. Before proceeding to the business of this meeting, there are certain technical legal matters which we must dispose of in order to make certain that we are conducting a duly authorized meeting. But as soon as these are out of the way, I would like to describe to you the matters proposed for your consideration and action at this meeting.
James Robertson here, CEO. The corporation has designated Francis H. Bird to serve as the Inspector of Election. He will present the signed oath as the Inspector of Election, and if there are no objections, I will direct that such oath be filed with the minutes of the meeting.
The shareholders will be given the opportunity to vote, and the results have been shared with the Inspector of Elections.
We'll pause for a moment while the Inspector of Election makes his final tabulation of shareholders. Will the Inspector of Election kindly submit his report of the number of shares of common stock of the corporation represented at the meeting, either in person or by proxy?
There are represented at this meeting, either in person or by proxy, 153,433,780 shares of common stock and preferred, which are entitled to vote at the annual meeting on all matters to be presented to the shareholders on a one-for-one basis. The report of the Inspector of Election indicates that they are present at the meeting in person or represented by proxy, the holders of a majority of the total number of shares of common stock of the corporation outstanding entitled to vote at the meeting. There is therefore a quorum present, and the meeting is competent to transact business.
Will the Inspector of Election kindly execute his certificate as to shareholders present at the meeting? And if there are no objections, I will direct that such certificate be filed with the minutes of the meeting. Secretary will report on the mailing of the proxy materials and the availability of a list of shareholders.
As Secretary of the meeting, I present to the meeting at this time a copy of the Notice of Annual Meeting of Shareholders concerning the matters to be considered and acted upon at this meeting, and a copy of the proxy statement, form of proxy card, and annual report for the year ended December 31st, 2021, together with a certificate of mailing from Broadridge, an affidavit of mailing from American Stock Transfer. The Inspector of Election also has at the meeting a list of the holders of record of the outstanding common shares of the corporation, which has been certified by Broadridge and arranged in alphabetical order, setting forth the name, address, and number of such shares held by each shareholder of record at the close of business on March 16th, 2023, the date fixed by the Board of Directors as the record date of this meeting. The certificate of mailing and affidavit of mailing will be filed with the minutes of this meeting, and the list of shareholders is available for inspection by the shareholders or their proxies throughout the meeting.
Now that the technical organization phase of the meeting has been completed, we will proceed to the significant business to be transacted at this meeting. Mr. Secretary, you may proceed.
Thank you. As described in the notice of the meeting, the proxy statement provided to shareholders, the purpose of the meeting is 1, to re-elect our Board of Directors, 2, to ratify appointment of our auditors to conduct our audit for the year ended December 31st, 2022, 3, to increase the authorized common stock, 4, to increase the authorized preferred stock, 5, the reverse stock split, 6, approval of the conversion of Series A preferred stock, notes and warrants into common stock, 7, the approval of conversion of Series B preferred stock into common stock, number 8, the approval of terms of a $38 million financing, number 9, approval of the acquisition, number 10, say on pay vote, 11, frequency of say on pay vote, and 12, which was other matters, and there are none at this time. Discussion of each proposal will be invited as each proposal is presented. I ask that the discussion be limited to the matter at hand, A discussion of general nature pertaining to the operation of the corporation be saved until the voting is completed. We will do all those discussions at the end after we go through each proposal, and we'll provide 30 minutes for that Q&A period. The first order of business to come before the meeting is the re-election of the directors. A vote has been taken by ballot for the re-election of the directors. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed. We will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter. Resolve that all the current directors are hereby elected as directors of this corporation until their successors are duly appointed or elected and qualified. Moving to the second order of business to come before this meeting is ratification of the appointment of Markham LLP as the corporation's independent registered public accountants for fiscal 2022. A vote has been taken by ballot for the auditor ratification. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed. We will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter. Resolve that the appointment of Markham LLP as the corporation's independent registered public accountants for fiscal 2022 is hereby ratified, confirmed, and approved. The third order of business to come before the meeting is the increase in our authorized shares of common stock. A vote has been taken by ballot for the increase in authorized common stock. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed, and we'll proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter. Resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the increase in our authorized shares of common stock. The fourth order of business to come before the meeting is the increase in our authorized shares of blank check preferred stock. A vote has been taken by ballot for the increase in the authorized preferred stock. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed, and we will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve to this matter. Resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the increase in our authorized shares of preferred stock. The fifth order of business to come before the meeting is the reverse stock split, and a vote has been taken by ballot for the reverse stock split. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed. We will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter. Resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the reverse stock split. The sixth order of business to come before the meeting is the approval of the Series A preferred notes and warrants, issuances of common stock shares upon conversion or exercise of those instruments. A vote has been taken by ballot for the Series A preferred matter. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed. We will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter. Resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the Series A preferred stock proposal. The seventh order of business to come before the meeting is the approval of Series B preferred stock conversion into common stock. A vote has been taken by ballot for the Series B. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed. We will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter. Resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the Series B preferred stock proposal. The eighth order of business to come before the meeting is the financing proposal. The vote has been taken by ballot for the financing proposal. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. Polls are now closed. We will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter, resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the financing proposal. The ninth order of business to come before the meeting is the acquisition proposal. A vote has been taken by ballot for the acquisition proposal. The polls have been opened, and shareholders of their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed. We will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter, resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the acquisition proposal. The 10th order of business to come before the meeting is the say-on-pay proposal. A vote has been taken by ballot for the say-on-pay proposal. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed, and we'll proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter, resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the say-on-pay proposal. The 11th order of business to come before the meeting is the frequency of say-on-pay proposal. A vote has been taken by ballot for the frequency of say-on-pay proposal. The polls have been opened, and shareholders or their proxies have been directed to mark their ballots and then deliver them to the Inspector of Election. The polls are now closed. We will proceed to the next order of business while the votes are being tabulated. We can now resolve as to this matter, resolve that the shareholders of the corporation approve the frequency of say-on-pay proposal each year on an annual basis. So with respect to each proposal, our board of directors is reelected. The appointment of our auditors to conduct our audit for the year ended December 31st, 2022 is ratified. The proposal to increase our shares of authorized common stock is approved. The proposal to increase our shares of blank check preferred stock is approved. The reverse stock split is approved. The proposal regarding our Series A preferred stock is approved. The proposal regarding our Series B preferred stock is approved. The proposal regarding the $38 million financing is approved. The proposal regarding the acquisition is approved. The say-on-pay vote is approved. And the frequency on say-on-pay vote is approved at 1 year.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. On the basis of such report, we declare that the above-mentioned proposals presented to the shareholders of the corporation at this meeting have also been approved as indicated. For any shareholder who may wish to ask questions or propose other matters for consideration to this meeting, I would like to take some of these questions relating to the affairs of the corporation for a total of 30 minutes.
Thank you. This concludes the formal portion of this annual meeting of shareholders. As there is no further business to come before the meeting, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Giovanni Casoli. We're going to announce some questions. When is the U.S. Lomotive launch?
So with regards to the launch of Lomotive in the United States of America, so the process of migrating servers on a technical side has already begun. That is an arduous process, but one that we are aggressively pursuing. That is going to be an update that we'll have for shareholders very soon. With regards to operations, that is another work in progress. Currently, we are performing an essentially software engineering autopsy on the current platform and the servers and software that is currently in place. It is a critical component of this business, Vinco Ventures, and the future of this company, and it's a high priority on my list of what we look to begin building in the U.S. The priority remains UGC exclusive premium content, delivering advertising and revenues within the platform, and building a community of both users, consumers, and creators while developing a state-of-the-art piece of software that will eventually take over what we see as a huge opportunity in the social media stratosphere. And hosting all of this within America will be a home run for this company.
Thank you. Next question is, please explain how the company is going to comply with moving forward is their roadmap to be compliant on the NASDAQ?
We are in the process of completing the year-end audit for 2022. As everyone's aware, we recently, in the last couple of months, caught up with the second quarter and third quarter quarterly filings to the SEC, and we are in the midst, as I said, of completing the year-end audit and preparing the 10-K. Simultaneously, we are also moving forward with completing the accounting for the first quarter and plan to file the quarterly report for the quarter ended March 31st, 2023, shortly after filing the 10-K, both of which will be done in accordance with the agreement with NASDAQ by late July. And then moving forward, we're putting in place the proper resources in order to, beginning in Q2, be able to timely file our quarterly reports from this point forward.
Thank you. Next question is, will there be a new valuation to include National Enquirer?
Evaluation?
Right.
Yeah, we are working on a valuation of the acquired assets with an outside firm, and we'll have that completed shortly, in the next 30 days.
Next question is, if the vote for the proposed stock split is approved, does the company anticipate applying for an additional 180 days to organically move the price over $1 for compliance?
No, we don't plan on applying for an additional 180 days. The split will take place relatively quickly in order to meet the NASDAQ requirements as agreed upon with NASDAQ at the hearing in March.
Next question is, what is the upside for Vinco Ventures in acquiring the National Enquirer?
So look, this is a very loaded question, and I'd love to take this opportunity to walk through exactly the process behind what we're doing here in the short, medium, and long term for the company. So if you look at this as a building block, the publications that these are legacy publications. What I mean by that is, comparative to digital media companies that I'm sure people have seen in the news are struggling. These are the companies that were supposed to come in and disrupt legacy print media. They haven't succeeded. So I look at this as a foundation, as not something that comes in and takes the shine off the assets such as Lemotive, but instead comes in to provide foundation and support. What we'll be doing is cross-media marketing, cross-media promotion. There's going to be opportunities to launch exclusive channels, not just with the National Enquirer brand, for example, but to expand on the type of content that is in the archives. There's a 96-year archive currently with the National Enquirer. I would say around 95% of it, as an estimate, has never been published online. There are currently stagnant digital operations. For Vinco Ventures to take a legacy brand with this much archive material gives the company a huge amount of resources. Content is king and the most valuable commodity in the media and marketing industry. And for Vinco to have the opportunity to exploit and monetize all of these pieces of content that are original, that are copyrighted, that could be licensed to other film studios, TV production companies, it's really a long-term play on owning and operating content. You know, the licensing agreement that would be in place with A360 that allows the Vinco and its subsidiaries, including Lemotive, Mindtank, AdRiser, and beyond, to use and, again, monetize content coming from the A360 Media Group, Celebrity Group, which includes Life and Style magazine, In Touch Weekly, Star Magazine. Again, we become a large aggregator of celebrity content. So when we're looking at how this would adapt or be folded into Lemotive, for example, this is going to be premium recognizable brands living inside the Lemotive ecosystem that consumers are then engaging with directly. That's going to build community. It's going to build legitimacy. It's going to build familiarity and bring in new users. By bringing in new users, we expand on audience growth. By expanding on audience growth, we become more attractive to advertisers. We've got to put one foot forward in front of the other with every step of the way here, but what I'm looking at is a long-term play by owning, controlling, and operating premium, copyrighted, and exclusive content. AdRiser, MindTank, Remotive, and beyond will be able to thrive as the foundations will be below instead of on top, and gives the company a very unique position in the market to carve out our own niche as being not just an aggregator of content, but become an influencer in our own right, to shape the headlines around the world, to shape the trends online, and cross-pollinate those avenues together, essentially, and really build something that's not been done before. And I believe that the assets that Vinco currently owns and operates, having these foundations of content, having this archive, gives it, again, like I say, a premium, high-value business position. For a company, these brands, like I say, they don't have a meaningful digital presence right now. So to fold in these brands within what we're already doing and operating, it really is a unique opportunity. But like I said, these are coming in to support and build and grow what we already have. They're not coming in to replace. I think that's a very critical point that I want to make to the shareholders and the people on this call today.
Thank you. Next question. How much revenue did we do in 2022?
Through the September quarter, as shown in quarterly filings, the total revenue for the company was almost $24 million. As I mentioned earlier, we are in the process of completing our year-end audit, so I can say the revenue for the full year is in the range of 25 to 30 million for 2022.
Thank you. What is the path forward for Lemotive application in light of the TikTok ban in U.S.?
So yeah, just to circle back ultimately on the first question you asked, Roman, which was to take advantage, I don't think is necessarily the right way to look at this. It's about building on what we're doing, which is migrating the service to the United States, to build operations here. The mess that TikTok have got themselves into will let them figure out what they want to do. So I'm not here to talk about other operations. What I will say is by bringing Lemotive to the United States and by developing the software, here in the same office, in the same rooms as what we're looking at, by building the content that's going to be US based, we're going to have a much larger US audience. And like I said, one foot in front of the other, you build that audience, you build the growth, and then eventually this platform will be unstoppable.
Next question. Thank you. Next question. Besides dilution, do you have any plans to address the suppression of our stock price?
Well, the best way to address it is a lot of the points that James raised, and to deliver strong operating results and higher net income, therefore higher earnings per share. And I think that will help support and grow the stock price and create shareholder value.
Thank you. Next question. What is your plan to raise the stock price and gain the trust back of your shareholders?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, and I don't want to speak for anyone else apart from myself, but I look at this as anyone who's here today are here because they care. And that includes myself, that includes the partner here, Chris. This is going to be something that we take very personally as well as professionally. In terms of building the trust, what you're going to have from us is not just talk, but action and deliverables. We look at every decision that will be made with a short, medium, and long-term plan that will be communicated. There will be deliverables that will be tracked properly where it comes to financial reporting. There are going to be partnerships, whether they be license agreements or acquisitions or revenue shares with other corporations and companies that will make sense, not just to investors, but to the shareholders, the everyday guy, the consumer, the audience. People will see what we're doing, and they will immediately know that what we're doing is for the good of the company and the good of the investors and shareholders. In terms of raising the value or increasing the value, solidifying the value, again, this comes down to consistency. We're nothing but as good as our last day, and every single day we're going to be fighting for the shareholder, fighting to make sure that that share price goes up in the right way with consistent deliverables, both in operating costs, revenues, EBITDAs. But again, creating a strong platform, whether it be Lomotiv, Mindtank, AdRiser, or creating a strong business, whether that would be the subsidiaries or the public company and parent company here at Vinco Ventures, each single part of this all has to go in the same direction. And that's what Chris and I are prioritizing. It's going to be about shared synergies. It's going to be about working together harmoniously and really investing in the future of this company. It's going to be about identifying future acquisitions that make sense to come into this company. And like I know that there has been some eyebrows regarding the National Enquirer or potential acquisitions in the media department, but I do hope my explanation behind it becoming a foundation and the value of content being the most prioritized play here, as opposed to any other avenue that may have been assumed. And we look at these businesses as, how can we make what we have stronger? And that's every single day that's going to be priority number one. And I think with good intentions, good transparency, active deliverables, we're going to make sure that the shareholders are both listened to, and that the value of this business is not just stable, but continues to grow.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to what James mentioned. I echo all of his sentiments. I can tell you that, both of us come from an environment of, transparency to the stakeholders and good corporate governance, which we're bringing here with us. I looked at this opportunity. We joined the company, just as everyone knows, a little over a week ago, and I saw a tremendous opportunity here. Being in the media business for the last 20 years, I've seen a lot of digital companies try and succeed and struggle, and the main issue with a lot of these digital companies is the lack of content. So I think, with the digital assets that Vinco has acquired over the past few years, bringing to the table the in-house content, as James described, will be a tremendous fuel to the fire to grow these digital assets and really propel them. That's the opportunity I saw here, and the reason I decided to join Vinco.
Yeah, look, we're not blind to the reality as to what's been going on here, but just to echo Chris's point there, neither he or I would want to come in if we didn't have a plan in place here that was going to succeed. And we both believe strongly that this company is a sleeping giant, and trust me, this is going to be a beast awoken.
Thank you. Next question. National Enquirer acquisition. What has led you to believe that unused content holds any value and simply wasn't utilized by the company because it was deemed unusable?
Okay, so I can answer that question very, I worked at that company, so I know the reasons why it wasn't used, and it wasn't because of the quality. I won't go too deep into talking negatively about business decisions that weren't or were made, but I will say this. Just because something is old or was printed once doesn't mean it can't be looked at and rebuilt again. It's a very easy question. If you open Netflix, there's a documentary this week that's ranked number 1 about the Boston bombing. That's old. If you look at number 2, you have Jeffrey Dahmer, the TV series that's winning Emmy Awards. That's old. Just because something isn't happening today or is a trend today doesn't mean there's not revenue opportunities to exploit from the archives. It's something where if we're looking at making movies, we're looking at making TV shows, we're looking at making documentaries, owning and controlling that IP and that copyrighted material is critical. For example, if we were going to look at doing, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but if you're looking at this archive, there are photographs, police reports, interviews, source material, unseen video clips, unheard audio clips. It's not just the printed magazines. There are volumes of folders, the PDFs of these issues dating back decades. It's been digitized and keyworded for quick search results. So how we look at it is, if there is a breaking news story today, or a celebrity passes away, or there's a critical moment of a stratospheric news story, I will bet a buck that there is a story in the National Enquirer's archive that would be more interesting to read today than something that's just been tweeted about, or a celebrity, 10 people react to one story. That type of content is not just lame, but it's recyclable and forgettable. What is in this archive? You pull something out and you have that first interview, or you have a story there that people don't know about because it never became digitized. It's not online. It's not part of the Google search history. So we'll be bringing that into that digital, converting that content ultimately straight to the digital and social platforms.
Thank you. Next question. Will the board have better communications with the shareholders?
Well, look, I believe so. I firmly believe so. We plan to, Chris and I is the we there, just to clarify. Chris and I plan to continue developing what we've been discussing here, which is the short, medium, and long-term strategies, both for the businesses in terms of synergy, as well as revenue opportunities and acquisitions. In doing so, we plan to communicate and share these steps. You will be seeing results very quickly. These deliverables are both realistic, achievable, and I believe, to be also quite humble, impressive. I intend to leave every single shareholder here happy, impressed, and comforted by the work that we plan to do. And by doing so, the board will be involved as they have been. But I believe that as we move forward into this new dawn, there will be a lot more transparency because, again, there will be a lot of action and a lot of excitement, and people should just hold on and enjoy the ride.
Thank you. Next question. When is the company expected to be profitable?
That's a difficult question to measure. It's going to be as soon as possible, and it'll come down to how quickly we can execute these plans and drive the revenue. That's the number one. And at the same time, we're driving revenue. Again, James and I come from an environment of maintaining cost structure to deliver as much profit to the bottom line as we possibly can. So we'll be immediately looking at costs, and we'll only spend dollars if they're going to generate revenue.
And just to kind of tack on to an earlier point I made regarding the digital media companies that are either being shut down in news divisions or fire sales that are going on, that's because the cost of content is so expensive. We look at this now as the acquisition of these publications, not just for the Enquirer and that group, but the content license agreement that we'll have. So it's not just one bite of the apple. There's going to be one article, 2 articles, 3 articles, up to kind of 300 articles per week are going to be funneled through MindTank, AdRiser. We'll have, we're looking at potentially adapting a crossover between reacting to stories in the digital side that goes directly into emotive for the user experience to build their communities and create more excitement about the content that we're publishing. But those overheads are not going to be covered by us. that content will not be paid for by us to be created. So those licensing agreements there for all of that content will not be impacting our outgoings, but brings in, again, that stability, that volume of content, depth of content. So when a user comes into our ecosystem, they don't have to leave because we're going to bring them a diverse portfolio of material that keeps them where they go from MindTank, one of our subsidiaries, through to Motive. They react online here. And that's the way we look at this, is we want to be a one-stop shop for every user, whether it be sport, news, politics, trends, true crime, TV, music, anything social, anything digital, as well as then the marketing and advertising elements of that to come to play. So, look, the EBITDAs and the revenues that come with these media acquisitions, that's purely from the newsstand. I think that's another critical point to remember when you look at the long-term play here. None of these financials have any kind of measure against digital. So for us to then look at what we can do with that, how we can scale it, the speed we can scale it with what we already have in place, it is a really a limitless view that I have as to how quickly and how fast we can grow this media ecosystem. Again, just to say, these assets wouldn't be something that we're looking to replace. They're going to be acquisitions that are coming in to support and grow and build what we have.
Thank you. Next question. What amount of shares will you receive as part of your compensation? Will you have skin in the game?
Yes, we will. It's still being determined by the board, but we will have skin in the game, and a big chunk of our compensation will be tied to performance of the company.
And just aside to that, skin in the game is going to be us turning up every single day. This isn't a monetary play when you talk about skin in the game. Our skin in the game is already begun. Shares aside, this is not something that we're looking at as let's duck in and try and see what's going on here. This is going to be something we're going to build a generational company.
Thank you. Next question. Please explain involvement of AdRiser and MindTank to National Enquirer.
So AdRiser and MindTank, like I've kind of touched on sporadically through some of my previous answers, how these companies will benefit from the content again and the content licensing agreement is, first off, you're reducing payroll. You're reducing payroll because the cost of creating content is suddenly zero versus if we were to go out there and say what budget is required to create this content in-house, it would be astronomical, again, which is why so many of these media digital companies who, again, were brought in and all the headlines at the time were all about how they're going to disrupt legacy traditional media. They're gone now, or they're slowly going, and the legacy traditional media survives. So that is one critical element to how AdRiser and MindTank are going to benefit both by volume of content and by revenue opportunity. Separately to that is by insourcing the costs, for example, by the National Enquirer or by MindTank, leveraging content within each other, as well as then using the AI arbitrage of AdRiser and how that business model is structured. We're not having to go out there and pay third-party commission fees if we were going to be using another vendor. So by insourcing all of this money, again, we're looking at this as a wormhole. Whether it be revenue or a user, when something comes into this ecosystem, it doesn't get out. This is a one-of-a-kind ecosystem that will everything that we do will benefit not just itself, e.g., the Enquirer won't just benefit itself, it will feed and grow every other element. Almost like if you look at it as a molecule with more molecules coming off of it. It's going to be this web of content and revenue that will be going from one feed, one channel, one pipe to another.
Thank you. I think we got, with the time, one last question. what will the ratio of the reverse stock split be?
Yeah, the ranges we had in the proxy was in the range of 1 to 2 to 1 for 20. It'll probably be on the higher end, obviously, given the current stock price, and to get it over $1. But the board is still determining exactly where the split would come in. And then ultimately the goal is to get, not just get above $1. We want to get well above it so that we can be sure to maintain over $1 regardless of what happens in the short term.
Right. All right. I think that concludes with the time that we had for questioning period.
Yeah, just to add on, so I know that a lot of the questions were about the media acquisition as well as the existing properties. When we look at developing Lemotive to become, there's going to be an autopsy into the engineering, into the software, but also looking at how we're going to create something here that's going to be not just unique, but best in market. And I look at best in market by being, what can we offer or provide that others cannot? So you look at other companies that may have suffered, whether it be Quibi with their short-term video platform, and how we could essentially develop original programming within an app, but not necessarily do something that would be a drain on resources or an overcommitment. So how we look at that would be, what do we have in terms of TV production, original content that we can build and launch within Lemotive that we're then promoting and marketing within our own assets and publications. So if you're at the grocery store and you see a copy of the National Enquirer, and on it you have a new exclusive show about a historic crime or an iconic celebrity or a breaking news story, and it's saying scan to download and watch on Lomo now for free, how much more exciting is that than anything else that is currently being done by those social media platforms? It's about diversifying and engaging with users to really expand on why this will not just be a home for dances and trends and UGC. That will, of course, be a pivotal and core piece of what we're building here, but the diversification of premium programming, exclusive documentaries, mini episodes, interviews with celebrities, politicians, newsmakers, public figures, music license agreements. We're going to build on that in-app experience and make it more streamlined, make it more functional, make it more reliable, so it becomes part of a user's day-to-day experience when they open their iPhones or their Androids or their desktop computers, and not just something that they check in on when someone shares them a link. I want this to become part of every American's daily routine. And by doing that, we have to diversify, we have to promote, we have to cross-market. And by having media acquisitions, you're not just taking the content, you're also using that platform for an infinite amount of marketing, which is something that I don't think anyone is too keen to overlook. So that's something that is another a vertical for us to look at as we move forward.
Thank you so much.
I hope everyone was able to at least get a little glimpse in this 30 minutes of questions on the plans that James and I have and what we're going to do with this company and to grow the company and improve and increase shareholder value. With that, this concludes the formal portion of the annual meeting of shareholders, and there's no other further business to come before the meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. I've received notification from two shareholders, one making the motion, so the other one seconding it, to adjourn the meeting.
You have heard the motion that the meeting be adjourned. If there are no objections, we will proceed to a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. There you go. The motion is carried and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much for attending and for your continued support of Vinco Ventures Incorporated.
And once again, everyone, that does conclude today's annual meeting. You may now disconnect.